Hi, this is Laura again at the end of a very, very long day, and I just wanted to give you an update of what's going on. First of all, Mark and I went into the city today. We got the call from the bank, the Ukrainian bank, that our bank cards had finally come in. And before the war started, we had started processing for a Ukrainian bank account. We've tried it at some other banks, and they had problems downloading some of the English forms to meet their tax codes. But we finally found a bank that it was no problem for them, and we were just waiting for the bank cards to come. And we finally got the call that they were in. They were coming from Kiev. So we went in today, and we got a... They really don't set up bank accounts by accounts here. They set it up by cards. So we have a US dollar card, and then we have a hryvnia card. And so what we're hoping to do is to be able to transfer money from our American bank to the US dollar card, then convert it into hryvnia, and then send it to our hryvnia card and pull it out. And by using a Ukrainian card, we can get up to 10,000 hryvnia at one time from an ATM, whereas now we're stuck at 1,000, which is about $33, or 3,000, which is about $100. And of course, Visa on our debit card is charging us $10 for every one. So hopefully we're going to cut them out and just be able to do the transfer and do everything here on their ATMs with no fees. And it's going to give us more cash, and we don't have to pull out small amounts constantly. So that is a huge win for us today. And we're setting up our first bank transfer to make sure everything that goes well. And so that will give us quite a bit of relief at being able to get out cash here in larger amounts and to have that on hand. Second thing is we had started on a fundraiser, and we're hoping to initiate it about mid-February. Got delayed a little bit, and then the war happened, and it's kind of been put off to the side. But after some discussion and prayer, we've decided to go ahead with the fundraiser. Just make it a little bit more generic. And so you're going to be seeing something from us on that through GoFundMe. Today, while Mark and I were in the city and going to the bank and running errands like buying our bean seeds, we're trying to get all of our seeds so that if things get worse, we've got all our seeds and we can still get our gardens planted. If it gets better, that's great, no problems, but we want to be prepared. While we were gone, the ladies made a specific kind of salad called shuba, and it's got fish and onions, then it's got a layer of potatoes, a little mayonnaise, carrots, mayonnaise, potatoes, and then beet, and it's a really good salad. They made one for me with just tuna, and then they made Mark's with tuna and onions because we don't like the salted herrings. But they made it for the emergency workers that we feed every evening, and then for the house. So it's a big treat. It's a big traditional kind of salad here. The men were really focused on the animals. We have 3 mama rabbits with babies. I'll be getting you pictures as soon as I can of them. And then we're going to breed the other 5 mama rabbits that we have. And our incubator is full of eggs. We put the light behind them, and out of the 108, we had about 95 that were good, or we think that they're good. And so they're in the last 3 days, and so probably tomorrow or the next day we might see little chicks being hatched in our incubator, which will be really exciting. And usually there's about a 50% rate of that, and those are all laying hens for us. Then our first pig, Lulu, she's getting really big. She's going to be the first one to deliver on March 31st. The one after that, I think, is May 1st, and then we have one on May 2nd, and then there's another one later in May and one on June 4th. So our pigs are getting nice and big, and hopefully they have a lot of little piglets in there. But they were taking care of the animals and just getting prepared for the baby chicks. We have a wooden box with a heating lamp that we put them in. We also have bigger wooden boxes with heating lamps that we get ready for the piglets. We had to move around some of the pigs to give an empty pen so that we can put 2 mama pigs, one on each side, and put their piglets in the middle. Because for the first couple days we have to help them learn how to feed, and then we just leave the gate open and they kind of go in and out. But mom has to learn how to not to sit or stand on the babies, and the babies need to learn how to get out from underneath mama when she starts to sit down or lay down. So the guys were doing all those kind of work today, and the house crew was helping the girls with all the different vegetables that had to be cleaned and everything for the shuba salad. Just a couple stories. One I heard this morning that was great. These 4 Russian tanks came into a village. I'm not going to use the name of the village, but they were running out of fuel. So what the Russian soldiers did is they took out all the fuel out of 2 tanks and put them into the other 2 tanks, and then they all loaded up in those 2 tanks, and they went in search for their unit. I guess they had gotten separated from their unit. While they were gone, the villagers came out and put Ukrainian flags on the 2 tanks. And after a while, the 2 Russian tanks came back because they couldn't find their unit, and they saw the tanks with the Ukrainian flag, and so they started firing on the tanks. And about the time when they were destroying the tanks, they started to realize that they were their own Russian tanks that they had just destroyed. So they were getting, a little panicky about this whole situation, and they were apparently driving around the village trying to figure out how to get out of the village. They finally came to a larger road with a bridge, and the first tank went across the bridge, and the bridge wasn't strong enough for the tank, and the tank fell down into a chasm, and there was water down in there, and it went down under the water. The other tank kind of panicked a little bit, and they started doing their little 22-point turnaround, but when they did, they got too close to the gullies on each side of the road, and they started to tip over, and they couldn't correct it, and they ended up going completely upside down, and obviously no one can get out of the tank that way. So there's kind of this big hoorah that this village took care of 4 Russian tanks without one single shot from a gun. Some brazen people. It's just amazing some of the things that are going on. In the town where our ex-client Volodya, graduated client, he's staying with us right now, kind of as a little bit of as a refugee. His family is in a specific town, and that town recently was awarded hero status by the president of Ukraine, because when a lot of the Russian military came into the town to take over, all the people, men, women, and children, laid down in the road to try and block the vehicles from coming in. Eventually, they did, come in and take over the town, and it's Russian-held territory right now. But thankfully, Volodya is able to talk to his family every morning and every evening once the communications were back up and running. But it's a very difficult situation there. But just the tenacity of the Ukrainian people. I love these stories. We usually have 5 buses that come into our village from the local town, and they're kind of spaced for people who go to work in the town or the teachers that come here to teach at the school. But since the war, it's been very, very unpredictable. And recently, I read a post from our mayor that she has able to coordinate 3 buses that come into our village at specific times now. So it's going to be much more reliable for the villagers to be able to get out and hopefully get to the town. The bazaar is kind of half open. Not all of the shops are open in the bazaar and the open air market, but quite a few of them are. So a lot of people in the village, it's a big relief for them that they can get there and get food supplies and those kind of things. Let me talk a little bit about the roadblocks. They're called block post or post block in Ukrainian, which it kind of helps me remember it a little bit. But we go through a number of them when we go into the city. And of course, we have a couple in our village, and they all know us by sight. The next village over, they're getting to know us by sight. And the next village over is getting to know us by sight. And then the town, like when we go feed the emergency workers and we go through there. But someone suggested that we put paper signs in the front of our windows identifying us as a charity organization that does humanitarian aid. And so we got those in the vehicle today, and it helped some getting through the roadblocks for the bigger city and the town and people who didn't know us. And it kind of gives us a little bit of priority in some things. There's a number of cars that we're seeing on the road that have like children, a paper sign. They're transporting children out of the war-torn areas into safer areas. I'm not sure if it's from schools or orphanages yet, but we just seen hundreds and hundreds of them transporting these children. But there's a couple other, that have humanitarian aid. And so we put those signs up at the suggestion that was given to us. But we're having some fun, and we're using the Roadblocks as a ministry opportunity. When we get to the Roadblocks, a lot of times Mark will roll down the window and he'll greet them in English and say, "How are you?" And we've actually had one or two, one police officer, and then I'm assuming one reserve soldier, speak back to us in English, which was very interesting, and it just kind of helps them know our faces and know our vehicle. And building that relationship helps us get around and do the things that we need to do. So anyway, just a few quick stories there. Mark's going to be doing a video tomorrow about a couple different things. And we just want to thank all of you again for praying for us, thinking about us, asking about us. It's kind of difficult. Last night I kind of had some moments of despair. I'm a combat veteran from the U.S. Army, and was down in Panama, and so there are some sights and sounds that can trigger just some old memories from me. But looking at the news and seeing a family that had been killed in a bombing, 2 little girls in her pink rubber boots and her pink backpack, and it just hit a chord in me. And so everybody was kind of asleep, and I'm usually the last one to go to sleep, and it just, all that darkness started descending upon me. And I was praying and reading Psalms 91, 92, going into 93, and just the weight of all the loss here, the loss of lives, the loss of property, and all based on a lie, a justification for invading Ukraine. And it was quite overwhelming. And all of a sudden my phone kind of goes ping, and there's my mother. And it's kind of hard to catch her online because she's not always online, but it's exactly what this grandma needed, was to talk to her mama. And my mom just comforted me a lot, and suggested another Psalms that I could read. And so I ended my evening by reading that Psalms 121 before going to sleep. So even though we don't feel like we're in serious danger, like of some other missionaries, like one of the posts that I put today up from the east, I kind of sanitized everything to protect their names and their location. But we're not quite in that kind of danger, although there is some danger here. But God is just protecting us and giving us favor, as we go around and minister to the people that we come into contact, whether it's cashiers or men at the roadblocks or the emergency workers or people in our village. And we have that boldness because of Christ. And your prayers are just opening up the heavens, and God is flooding down his power into this situation. And there's just some amazing things that are really going on that you definitely know it's God's hands. So just giving you a quick update, and now it's time for me to get to bed because it's getting kind of late. So we love you guys, and we just thank you so much for your support.